Hi, this is Marek from Tryb Solo, and today I would like to tell you more about Skyrim, the adventure game from Modiphius. Thanks for sending it for review. And Skyrim, the adventure game, is a game based on a very famous video game, also called Skyrim. And in this board game, you play as members of the Blades, an elite organization, and you will be involved in a war, conspiracy, and a lot of adventures. It's a game for 1 to 4 players. This is a story-driven, open-world fantasy game. You have 2 campaigns in the base game. Each is divided into 3 scenarios. There's also a free roam mode where you can just play Skyrim, the board game, without any specific scenario. Now I would like to show you how the game plays, more or less. There will be some spoilers, maybe, because I have to show you some cards in order to explain how the game works, but don't worry, I will not tell you a lot. So now let me show you the board and how the game plays, and then we will be back here and I will tell you my opinion on this game. So this is Skyrim, the adventure game during my solo game. This is the first scenario of the first campaign. In the base game you have 2 campaigns, each contains 3 scenarios. You can play the campaign from the first to the 3rd scenario, or you can choose any scenario you want from any campaign and play them as a single scenario, single mission. The rulebook says it's allowed. You can also play this game in a free roam mode where you have no campaign, no scenario. You just walk around, fight with monsters, you will visit different cities, find equipment. So this is like an open world option if you don't want to play any specific campaign. But this is the main board, the main map. The map is huge. I'm not sure if you can see it from this video, but the board is 1 meter wide, so it's quite big. It takes a lot of my table. This is the Skyrim area. You have different cities, different locations, different lands, dungeons, crypts, and you have your mini of your hero. Of course, if I play solo, I play with 1 hero. And you will move around this map, do different quests, fight with monsters, visit dungeons, visit cities. The game, this is an adventure game, a story-based game, so different quests will sometimes lead you to more quests, to do different things specific to scenario, fight specific monsters, do different, you will have different choices that you will have to make. Each player has got a player board like this one, and here you have space for your experience points. Here is space for your gold. Here you have 3 different resources in this game that you will gather during the game. Here is this space tells you how much experience points you need to advance to next level. When you advance to next level, you will gain a special ability. You have a lot of abilities in the base game box that you can choose from. Here you have your 3 stats: health, stamina, and magic. Health is important to stay alive. Stamina is important if you will fight with swords and some weapons. And magic is needed of course, for magic and for spells. At the top of the player board you have space for different equipment, helmet, your armor, weapons, and stuff like this, rings and amulets and potions. Here you have backpack area where you can store 4 items, and you have space for different statuses that you will acquire during the game. On the right side you have space for your quest, and here is space for your character card. Normally you will put the different cards above, below your player board. I had to put it like this so it will fit in my camera. This is a player card, a character card. You have 6 different races to choose from. Each card is double-sided. Here is a male and female version. Each character has some special ability and some abilities that will be activated when you learn a special special ability during when you level up. So for example, if you, after learning destruction ability, you will add 1 damage to destruction spells. So these abilities will be available a little later in the game. This one is available from the start. you will have different items like armor. You have some card that will allow you to modify the equipment with magic, or like you can upgrade or enchant an equipment. It will give you special bonuses. Here you have some, for example, a sword that you can swing and slash and parry, and if you upgrade the sword, it will deal additional damage. So a lot of options to modify your equipment. You have spells, you have potions. You also have quests. There are 3 types of quests. There is the main quest that you have to finish in order to win a scenario. There's always some story text on the card, and there is an objective. Here you have a personal quest, a quest that is attached to your character, and also it tells you where to go. You have some story, then there is an objective. You have to perform some test when you go to the specific place. On the other side of the card you have what happens in case of success and failure. You have different options to choose from. A lot of quests don't end with just one card, but when you finish part 1 of a quest, the game tells you to take another card and another quest. So there is a lot of cool stories here. On the main board you have space for world quests, and this is the 3rd type of quest where that are available for every player in the game, because the main quest and the personal quest is attached to your hero, to your character, and the world quests are available for every player. You have space for events. Events are there's an event deck, and you take the top card of the event deck every round, and something happens. Sometimes good things, sometimes bad things. The world quests come from this event deck, so this is something that is unpredictable, and every round you will take the top card and read what happens. On the top right corner of the board, here you have listed all the strongholds that are in the game, in each region of the game. This part of the board tells you what type of market cards you can get, how much every resource costs, and there is also a threat track. Maybe you have noticed there are some black threat tokens, and every time you take the top card from the event deck, apart from some gameplay text, you also have threat icons, and you have to add as many threat tokens to different elements in the game. You can add threat tokens to quest cards. Each quest card has a threat limit on the, for example, top right corner. If you add 5th token here, you will fail this quest and you will read the failure option. You can add tokens to quests, but also you can add threat tokens to different strongholds. And the more tokens you add to a specific stronghold, the more bad things happen. Because if you add the first threat token, the stronghold becomes unstable and the market is inaccessible. If you add a second token, the stronghold is closed and you have to pay gold to enter it. And if you add a third threat token, then every turn of the game you will have to add additional threat somewhere on the board. And this is kind of a timer, because if you fail the main quest, usually you lose the game. So the more threat tokens are on the board, the more difficult the game becomes, because markets in strongholds will be unavailable, some quests will be failed and discarded. So you have, in a way, you have to hurry and you have to try not to add too many threat tokens to the game board. Here you have different decks, like you have 3 types of market decks. Not every item can be bought in every stronghold, but when you take a deck like this, you have different items that you can buy. You have always a price, and here are some better equipment cards, better than the basic ones. You also have advanced cards and basic equipment cards. You can get these cards when you fight with enemies, when you complete some quest. As a reward, you will be sometimes able to take a card from this or this deck to get additional items. There is also a basic deck and if you pay resources, 2 stones, you can craft the items from the basic deck if you are in a stronghold. So you have strongholds that you can visit. In your turn you can move up to 4 spaces on the map. If you have a horse, you can move to up to 5 spaces. If you start in a stronghold, you can pay to move with a carriage to a different stronghold. But when you finish your movement in a specific place, you can do different things. Because when you finish in a stronghold, you will get a card from this town deck. You have different events, different quests, different things can happen. You can get additional quests from this deck. If you finish your movement in a wilderness location, there is this second deck with additional quests. If you finish your movement in a dungeon or a mine, you can go to a dungeon, and each scenario in this game has got a dungeon challenge card, and it tells you which type of enemies you will fight depending on the location that you visited, depending on the dungeon, and you take a specific card from this enemy decks, and you will fight some traps and enemies and monsters and spiders and different things. The higher level is your character, the more powerful monsters you will have to fight, because when your character levels up, the game tells you to discard the low level enemies. So the game scales with your character, with your hero level. In the dungeons are a great way to gain new equipment, new resources and experience, because experience points are very necessary to level up. You can get more items and stuff like this. So after movement, depending on the location that you have finished, you can do different things. And of course, if you have finished your movement in a location that is specific to a quest that you have, the world quest or your personal quest, then you can try to finish or move forward with your specific task. There are a lot of cards in this game. You have a specific box with numbered cards, and these cards are added to your game depending on the quests and depending on the story. In the rulebook also tells you how to prepare every scenario, which cards to take. Some of these cards will be added to, I know, town decks or wilderness decks, or you will create event deck for every scenario. You also have numbered small cards, some equipment cards and some, statuses, and they also have numbers, and you will add these cards when the game tells you to. So if you finish a specific quest or a specific task, sometimes you will be rewarded with this cards. As for the rulebook is quite long. It has 50 pages, but it has a lot of information and examples. The rulebook is a little complex to when you want to find specific things in it. So probably before you start playing, you will have to read it once or twice to remember where you can find specific information. But there are a lot of examples, and to be honest, I didn't have a problem to play this game after reading the rulebook. It also has a combat reference guide and turn reference guide, so it helps you to check what you have to do every turn or during combat. There's also a second booklet. This is the adventure game tutorial, and this is a really cool thing because this is a tutorial mission. The game tells you how to set up the game. You will have to choose a specific character, and in this box with cards you have a specific tutorial scenario, and the game guides you through the first 4 turns of the game, explaining how to fight, how to move, how to use events and the quests and stuff like this. So this is something you can really read before reading the rulebook to learn how to play this game. And on the back side of this book you have the adventure game scenario book, where you have all the campaigns and all the chapters of each campaign. This rulebook tells you which card to choose, how to create the event deck and everything. Tells you also how to play the game, what type of equipment you get. So everything can be found here. As I said, you can play the whole campaign, or you can play a standalone scenario. It's up to you. If you play this game solo, the only difference is you can play, of course, with just one character, so this is really cool. You don't have to use multiple characters. If you play solo, the only change is that normally you will draw one event card each round, and when you play solo, you take the event card on the first turn. On the second turn you don't take the event card, so every 2 turns you take event cards. It helps you because it makes the game a little easier for one character, because you don't add as many threat levels, threat tokens to different cards, because normally when you have 2 characters they have bigger chance to finish more quests during each turn, and when you are just alone you cannot go to all the places, so you uncover an event card every 2 turns, but this is the only difference. Of course you have dice that you use in combat to do different attacks and different things, but I don't want to go into such details. This is basically how you play Skyrim the adventure game. I hope I didn't spoil too much for you. It's hard to show you an adventure scenario based game without showing the cards. Now let me tell you what I think about this game, and I will tell you my opinion on Skyrim. With board games like Skyrim, there's always the most important question that people have. Is this game good? Is it just a game based on a famous IP? Or is this game really good? And the answer here is that Skyrim the adventure game is a really fun adventure cooperative game. I had a lot of fun playing this game, especially because this is an open world game, and for me this is kind of fresh, because I think when I play fantasy games, most of them are dungeon crawlers, where you have a specific map, specific I don't know, dungeon or I don't know, rooms, areas, and you move your miniatures around the dungeon. And here you have an open world, divided, the Skyrim region divided into different smaller regions. You have strongholds, you have a lot of quests. You always have this main quest, because if you play a specific scenario, there's always a main quest that you have to follow, but you can do a lot of other things apart from the main goal. Because depending where you go, you can go to strongholds, to some wild areas, forest areas, you can go to crypts and dungeons. You can do a lot of things there. There's a lot of options to gain new equipment, to modify or enchant your equipment, to gain experience points, because you will play as a chosen character, and you will be able to level up, to raise your attributes, but also to learn new skills that will help you during your adventures. So this is a really fun open world game, and of course it doesn't give you as much freedom as the video game. You cannot just, I don't know, go somewhere and become a carpenter living on a mountain, because there is kind of a timer here. The whole threat mechanism is really cool, because every time you take a new event card, you will have to add a threat to different either strongholds, degrading them and making them less accessible, or to different quest cards, and each quest card has a threshold, and if you add too much threat, you will have to discard this quest card, and the quest will fail, and there will be consequences. So there is kind of timer that forces you to do quests and do different things, but you have a lot of freedom, and this is really fun. The combat is fun. I forgot to show you how the combat works when I showed you the gameplay of Skyrim, but the combat is really fun because it's easy, because you have a die for your enemy that you have to roll, and depending on the result, the enemy is doing different actions listed on the enemy card. But you also have your equipment, and different weapons have different attack types, so you have to roll your dice. Then you have to match symbols on your dice with the specific action you want to take, the combat action, and then you can fight, you can dodge, you can cast spells. Enemies have different armor type, like light armor, heavy armor, and depending on your attack, you have to you can say strategically plan which attack to use against which enemy. It's fast, but it's also quite fun. It's random because you have to roll your dice, but yeah, but it works really well. The campaigns are quite replayable because you have a lot of different cards, different quests that you can find during your adventures, and there are a lot of enemy cards and a lot of different equipment cards. So every time you play the game, it will be a little different, even if you play the same scenario. For example, when I played solo, you choose or randomly choose one starting card that tells you who you are, what you have to do. Depending on the card, you have a different quest that you have to follow during the first scenario. So it's fun. I can imagine that if you play the same scenario second or third time, you will have different quests and different adventures. But even if you finish all the scenarios and the campaigns, you have this free roam mode, which is also cool because you will just walk around, do different quests, level up, fight monsters without any big plot and without any, you know, big goal. It's just for fun, going around Skyrim and doing different things. Are there any disadvantages? One disadvantage, not for me because I have quite a big table, but this game is quite huge, and if you have a small table, you may have a problem to fit Skyrim on it because the board is 1 meter wide. You also have this player board that you have to use if you play with more than, I don't know, one player. If you play with 2, 3 or 4 people, each player has got a player board. You have all the decks of cards, the dungeon cards, and there are a lot of things, and I think it may be hard to fit on a small table. The other thing is, as always with crowd-funded games, that Skyrim is not just a base game, but you have expansions. You have Dawnguard expansion, another expansion with a dragon. All the expansions add new cards and new enemies, new campaigns, new scenarios and stuff like this. And if you want to buy everything, the price will be quite high. The price was quite attractive during the GameFound campaign, and now if you want to buy all the things separate, you will have to pay a lot, especially that Skyrim is, you know, a famous IP. So I can imagine that Modiphius had to pay some cash to Bethesda for the rights to use Skyrim. But for me, the base game is still fun. Without any expansions, you can have a lot of fun and adventures here. And I had fun playing it. I think the game defends itself just as an adventure cooperative board game, regardless the Skyrim name. So I'm quite happy. If I had to compare it to something, I would say Hexplorit. Hexplorit is far more complex in terms of rules, and it's more kind of RPG board game. But the open world, the different quests and different monsters and walking around the map, doing different things, reminds me of Hexplorit. And this is a very good comparison, and because I love Hexplorit, so I also had a lot of fun playing Skyrim, the adventure game. Thank you for watching, and click the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to my channel, visit me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. You will find links in the description, and thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.